with this album, and of course with your previous record, is shaped by trauma, and I wondered if there were other albums that had kind of informed your way of processing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with this?
Okay, I'm just gonna get involved.
Yeah, good.
I wasn't listening to anyone else really at the time. Not in terms of like with the first album, Brutalism, that I was inspired by a lot of albums. Yeezus by Kanye West and stuff like that was a real point from his bravery and that kind of cut and shut production and lyrical. So I took that along with me, and I think that's influenced me up until now. But really, Joy as an Act of Resistance was written around self-progression, mindfulness, improvement, getting over my addiction, alcoholism, grieving my daughter, and just improving as a person. And I had to not look for inspiration musically or writing at that point in my life to write. I needed to look into myself, and I was listening to music, but it in no way really affected the way I was writing because I was so infatuated with how I was improving on record and in life, and I was in counselling, and my fiance and I at the time, my now wife, were improving our relationship and getting over something catastrophic, and there wasn't going to be any other writers or musicians that were going to help me right at that point, unfortunately, for this category. But my turmoil wrote it.
Yeah.
But before that, I grew up on hip hop, and uh, I discovered guitars when the Strokes appeared, and I think in recent years, girl band have been just a breath of fresh air. I've just been listening to girl band's new records, so they're stuck in my head. But I don't know, man. There's contemporary, right? I'm inspired by bright voices that speak violently about beautiful things or speak beautifully about violent things, like Slow Tie, for instance. Um, I wasn't looking for inspiration writing-wise for this album. It was all about the subject matter of the album was the writing. It wrote itself. I needed to survive something and come out of it in one piece, and that meant just getting rid of the load on my back that I've been carrying all my life, and deconstruct all the cyclical behaviors I've been going through, and improve as a person and as a partner and a friend and a musician. But there weren't any albums that were going to help me do that, I'm afraid.
During that process,
Yeah.
I can't imagine how intense it must be to be actively kind of digging in that way. Are you more of an intense person to be around when you're writing, or is it just always there and it's coming out through your performance when you're not writing or recording?
That's a good question. I think when I'm writing, I'm way more anxious because I wanna be good. I wanna improve, and I wanna be succinct. And I don't, if you get rid of all the nonsense, I want to be loved. Everyone wants to be loved. And when you process yourself, when you project yourself onto the world, it's the same thing. You want to be loved. Even people that are antagonistic with their art, that look like they hate everyone, they want to be loved. They just don't love themselves, so they're pushing that away with nihilism or just terrible art. But or amazing art, like Bukowski. But I think for me. I'm only absorbing what I am and what I'm going through as a way of improvement, writing-wise. So I become a bit more heightened around, like at the moment I'm writing the fourth album and the lyrics and stuff, and I'm in that first bit of panic where you got to try and forget all the compliments and all the criticism you've had to be as transparent and honest about your writing as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in that bit where I'm like writing stuff and then scrapping it because it's terrible, because I want to be loved.
Have you ever worried about other artists unintentionally influencing you, or like written something that you thought was amazing and been like, oh God?
I'm an advocate of celebrating your loves and wearing your influences on your sleeve. Like when we were, for instance, again with the Kanye West reference of the first album, I told everyone in interviews, it's like you steal all your stuff. You only learn your artistic language through experience. You're not born like this. You can't speak, you learn language, and artistic language is exactly the same thing. It comes through a process of experiencing and learning yourself and how to project what you learn onto the world. So that comes with what I listen to as well. Like, I'm sure there's loads of musicians and loads of albums recently that have influenced this album, but it's all in the back, you know? I
Yeah.
don't, but yeah, there's like, I think it's important to not hide your influences and celebrate what you love. Why wouldn't you celebrate what you love? Why would you pretend that you're like this monolithic genius when you can be that, but with influences? It's a beautiful thing. Like, how did you get there? It's a nice thing to understand yourself, is to kind of deconstruct what you've learned and think about where you're from. And like, you know, I'll always do that. I think it's great.
Totally agree. Last question. Are you very excited to play on the night? How are you feeling about it?
Do you know what? Watching Tom York play, I can't remember what song it was, but he sat at the piano and he stared at the front row for his album Eraser. And like, it was this moment where I was terrified and in awe at the same time. And it's not like, you know, to see something like that and to transport. And that didn't make me want to play at the Mercury's. That wanted me to play and to cut through that wall and to pierce people's guts and hearts as well as eyes and ears. And so like for me now, it's like I want to, and Young Fathers did it as well. And I think for me, it's like I want to be in that band that, you know, pierced people's guts and pierced people's hearts as well as their eyes and ears through the TV screen.